Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is enjoying the conference so far and hearing lots of good chatter. Thank you, of course, to Rob, even though he can't hear me, for the video and for the welcome. But before we get into these hard-hitting questions, maybe a little bit about you, Vivien. Actually, you know what? Before I even get there, me being on this chat is frankly quite self-serving, as I do run the wealth management business at RBC, and so when STS does successfully advise clients on a strategic exit and a meaningful one, obviously my hope is to be there to help support the clients when they come into good wealth, and I can help them plan it and invest it properly. So that's my motivation. But I mean, Vivien, would love to hear a little bit more about your
get the
journey
first shot,
as well,
yeah.
right?
Okay, I'm Vivien Webb, and thank you very much for having me here at this conference. It's been fantastic so far in the morning. So I have been a private wealth manager, private banker, all my career, 33 years. So I retired last year from Morgan Stanley. And in fact, it was very perchance that I met Rob. He was, in fact, introduced to me by one of my board members at Pathfinders, which is a Hong Kong NGO working for migrant children's benefits. And I'm the board chair. So one of my fellow board members introduced me to Rob. And I was just in Whistler, in fact, vacationing. And Rob was my neighbor. Okay, not very far from me. So we got together, we had dinner, and I told him that I will be retiring. And he said, just right, because we have nobody in Asia. And I think, STS actually is a very global business. And the way that they have been operating is all the specialists, the managing directors, they all work virtually. And when there's a deal, they put a deal teams together just like that. And so he said, well, we have nobody really representing, especially in Hong Kong. And so he managed to convince me to maybe start off conversations with entrepreneurs in Hong Kong or in Asia. And I thought about it and met a lot of the people within the company. And I found that their vision, their mission, and also their culture is really very much in line with mine, especially on the relationship side, because as Rob said, it's a relationship business and it's all word of mouth that we get clients to trust us, to let us be their advisor to sell their baby, because all these entrepreneurs, and by the way, 80% of all global businesses really are in private hands, okay? And so I thought, it's right in my kind of domain and my space. And so I said, yes, why not? Now, there is also a second angle that I really thought fits my philosophy. And, after I retired, I love to do more giving back to the community. And STS, instead of just saying sell to strategic, is success to significance, which is the continuation after they sold the business. We hope to be able to build a legacy and maybe refer them to Terence over here, and do good to the community and build a legacy. And I felt that since I love to do more giving back to the community after all these years of working, in banking, that really fits my kind of, space at the moment in my stage of life. So I said, yes, why not? And then I started talking to a lot of entrepreneurs and private clients within the region. And I figure that many of Asian clients, they have a lot of capital stored up. So they are more on the buy side than the sell side. Now, of course, there are some who are also selling. So it's a very vibrant environment at the moment, especially after we all came back from 3 years of hidden from COVID. So there you go.
Well, thanks, Vivien. And look, you mentioned a couple of points in there, and I think what really stood out for me was his culture and that alignment of thinking. And I think for us at RBC as well, right? We spend a lot of time talking about the what, and look, every bank has similar what's, right, in terms of what we do. That we got similar hows and the approach that we want to go about accomplishing, which is, you know, integrity and trust and everything else. But it's that why that's really stands out for us as well, right? And that element of absolutely helping our clients thrive, but also the communities in which we operate and how to helping them prosper is very much front and center in what we do. We learned a little bit about STS through the video through Rob, but I mean, I'd love to maybe hear a little bit more about Rob's story. What's his motivation? Why is he doing? Why did you find like create STS altogether?
Okay, you know, they said mad dogs and Englishmen, but actually mad dogs and Canadians. Now, Rob is actually a very high achiever. He is one of those guys who, you know, built his business when he was in his 20s. He sold his first company he built, is a communication and advertising company and PR company. He sold it when he was in his late 20s. And he got 27x in 1992. And he thought, fantastic, you know. And then he met one of the so-called strategic buyers, and he said, I would have given you 300% for that business. And he said, now, I wasted all that impact capital that could have built up, okay, from selling my business. And in fact, he set up a foundation called L Trust Foundation, and to, in fact, help NGOs to better and make it more, I would say, you know, make it more appetizing for investors and also for people to actually give money to. So he thought, okay, I better build a business that I can actually help entrepreneurs to really help them to build a, you know, a business that is attractive for strategic buyers. And so that's how he actually formed this STS Capital. Now, of course, he also built a foundation, and he is one of those guys that is a 7-summiter, they call it, that he climbed 7 highest mountains in 7 continents. So he is, you know, definitely a high achiever.
That's like the 7 summits, pretty impressive. We recently had a management offsite, and we hired somebody to mimic and in a kind of simulated environment what it would take to summit Everest and all the different real-time decisions that might be required as conditions change. So it's actually pretty neat to hear about that. So STS is all about maximizing value and you know, selling to strategic as well, and obviously for the greater good and for a higher cause. But how does STS go about doing it? What's the secret sauce? Like, what is this, you know, the unique way in which you guys go about advising clients?
Okay, so the way they do it is quite unique. So we have these specialists. They are marketing specialists. They are not technical specialists. They actually go and talk to clients and sell the story about how, you know, what are the intrinsic value. They find out what the intrinsic values are within the business, and then how do they actually make it attractive for a strategic buyer to come in, and because of that intrinsic value, will make it more profitable for both businesses. So, so we use the marketers, and these marketers, they actually approach the strategic buyers at the highest level, like the CEO level, the major shareholders level, and so it's very much below the radar. We don't talk to investment bankers, you know, it's not through that channel, and it's very low key. So even their competitors would not know that they're selling. So this is the first step. And then we work with these strategic buyers who come in and see how they would actually have this business fit into their existing business. Now, of course, we also do roll-ups. When a seller said, well, I'm not ready to sell, then, we help them actually to give them advice. It's a very long process to build them up, maybe buy some of the competitors' business in order to make them attractive for a ultimate strategic buyer.
Sometimes I think, and maybe this is the very cynical side of me, I think strategic buyer, I think Richard Gere from Pretty Woman, and they're going to come in and buy the thing up and then sell it off for parts. But what is a strategic buyer, and how do you find them?
So that is also one of the reasons we don't work with private equity firms. We don't work with fund managers because, even before they started looking at businesses, they're already thinking of breaking it up, or hey, who is the next ultimate buyer is going to come in and buy this. So a strategic buyer is somebody actually would be able to utilize that intrinsic value and make it better for both businesses. And normally they are the buyers who are maybe in the same businesses and maybe not in the same geography. They can actually take advantage of different geographies to distribute their products, different intellectual properties that they wanted but have not gotten. So all these different factors that make their own, the buyers, businesses more successful.
Is it hard to find? Like how would you go about finding the buyers? Well, I guess just through network and everything else?
Okay, so once we actually work with a seller, then we would put actually a deal team together and look through who are the strategic buyers. Now, sometimes the actual seller themselves also know who the strategic buyers are. Okay, but for them to actually go through that process and approach them is awkward. And very often they can't get the best price, believe me. Okay, you need a middle person to do that because we can then convince the buyer what the really intrinsic value is of the business. So that's why we use these so-called marketing specialists, and they will go and approach all these different strategic buyers whom we have identified.
I think you like one of the notes you mentioned, just, the awkwardness. I mean, oftentimes it's passion, right? Like a lot of entrepreneurs start something, they put their own blood, sweat, and tears into it, and have built something that is their life's work. And now that they may be at a stage in their life where they're looking for different options, or the next chapter in life for that matter as well. So I think having somebody like STS who take personal care in their approach to finding strategic buyers, I think makes a ton of sense. I would imagine that STS works with clients from a wide array of industries and what have you. So would you have specialists? Would you specialize in one sector or another sector or industries, or?
Actually, STS is industry agnostic, but we are industry aware. Okay, we know because there are specialists in almost, most of the industries whom we have in the company who are the managing directors. And they themselves actually are at a very high level in their own businesses. They were CEOs before of companies. They've been through that period of, sleepless nights. They know what it is to actually build a company and then to sell a company. So these are the people who, actually convince the clients and work with the clients. Now, you might ask, okay, so what are the reasons that people sell businesses? We identified 6 Ds, okay? Death, divorce, disease, disability, debt, and disenchantment. Now, however, there are cases, in fact, there are 2 cases in Asia which are really interesting that we're working on right now. One is that we have this business in China, is a winery business in China, and they actually also acquire other vineyards, okay, in the US and in Europe. But all of a sudden, the family decided, well, not all of a sudden, but for good reason, that they wanted to build a distillery because, you know, hard liquor really is the growing market in China. So the family decided, I want to sell the other businesses. I can't be like, you know, spreading our management too thin. So we want to sell our businesses, beautiful vineyards, you know, in the US and, you know, in Europe. And this is then, you know, one of the reasons why they want to sell it. And in fact, they said, well, we don't mind if they give us some renminbi as well, if they are a China buyer, because we need renminbi to build our onshore business. So this is one. Now, another one that recently we've just taken on was, again, actually, it was to do with beverage. It's funny that, you know, two businesses related to beverages, alcoholic beverages. This is a family that is, you know, very much in actually South Asia. And the family, the mother is an American, the father's educated in US. They built a great business in beverages, but they have 3 daughters. And the daughter said, Dad, I don't want to have anything to do with this business. Okay, so the father now, you know, he's still very young. He's in his, you know, maybe late 50s. And he said, I have to actually start thinking about divestment or actually bringing in a partner to work with me because my 3 daughters, they wanted to do different things. And I wanted to be able to actually give them the capital to do so. So, I mean, there are lots of reasons, okay, and many of them are quite interesting outside of the 6 Ds.
I was trying to come up with something witty to say about beverages, but I probably gives away a bit too much about myself, so why don't I leave that one alone? Are there other strategies that entrepreneurs might want to consider in terms of an exit? Like, what if they're not ready? Like, they're just not quite ready to move on yet.
Well, I think our advice really is, you don't know when you're ready. If you think you're not ready, at least when you're thinking about it, you should be talking to someone, okay? Because, I mean, you know, the entrepreneurs are very good at sort of building their own business and growing their own business, but really, M&A is not their expertise, and they should really talk to an advisor. And what STS really is good at is giving advice. They would come in and look at, okay, well, are you profitable in the last 3 years? You know, do you have a good management team? And is your profitability sustainable? Do you have a CFO? You know, who are your auditors? And, you know, what are the markets that you're growing? So all these questions really would be what a strategic investor will be asking. And so we want to prepare you and see, you know, if, let's say 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, you really want to do something, or even if you're not big enough, you know, do a roll-up, buy up some of your competitors, and we will help you with that. And then make that, you know, make you be the right size to be able to be attractive for a strategic buyer. So all in, talk to us.
Yeah. So how does an entrepreneur get in touch? How do they reach out and find an?
Well, I have a lot of brochures at the back with my name card actually clipped onto it. So please, you know, you can go on the website and look at STS. In fact, I've put together some material to let you know how, actually, what are the criteria that you should be thinking about for selling your business. And in fact, it is also very useful to see how attractive your business is when you see those selling criteria. Maybe you're not selling, but it's like a Bible for running a good business. And we are always free to give advice.
I was going to ask you how you got involved, but you already answered that earlier on because you were skiing in Whistler, and clearly you're wearing red, so you might as well be honorary Canadian.
Oh, by the way, yes, I could be an honorary Canadian. My grandfather actually emigrated from Taishan to Canada the early last century. And in fact, he was buried in London, Ontario. And I mean, you know, we've been vacationing, my sister and I, our family have been vacationing in Canada for the good, what, 20 years, 30 years, 30 years. And my daughter-in-law is Canadian, right? So I think I can claim some providence there.
Well, we're happy about that. Absolutely.
Oh yes, my granddaughter, I just had a new granddaughter, 10 days old.
Very good, congratulations.
Yeah, she's Canadian for sure, yeah.
Now, I'm sure the audience is anxious to get at some questions. Any final thoughts?
Well, final thoughts is any entrepreneurs who's listening to this or any advisors to entrepreneurs, you know, don't hesitate, you know, to each actually get an advisor when you are thinking of divesting your business or you want to change direction. Please get in touch and, you know, let us do all the hard work. And, you know, don't try to do it yourself. I mean, you never really do your own dentistry, do you? So please, you know, get in touch. I'm here in Hong Kong, and but our team is very, very global. I also put some deal, you know, our latest deals. There's a list of our latest deal, about 30 to 35 deals that are current, because I know that a lot of Asian clients, actually, they have a lot of capital stored up in the last few years, and they're ready to actually make acquisitions. And I also work with a lot of banks too, and bankers that, you know, because we also have referral agreements that we share, you know, these commissions. Now, our commission, or what we call fees, is actually pretty flat. We are not like the investment bankers. We don't actually take a big upfront, you know, sort of retainer. It's on a month-to-month basis. And so the client can actually stop anytime if they don't feel that our services is required. And then the success fee really is, you know, what Canadians is very familiar with, a hockey stick approach. Okay, so at the base, we are very competitive. If we sell your business, let's say, you know, 100 million, we sell it at, I don't know, 10x, you know, we are very fair of getting whatever is the market type of commission or fees. But as we go up, if we sell it, you know, three times or 300%, then we get incremental more kind of fees or incremental additional fees. So I think it's all very fair game. But I also want to talk about the philanthropic side of STS, and especially, which is what attracted me to STS, is because, as I said, I'm the board chair for a local charity called Pathfinders, and we look after the interest of children born to migrant mothers in Hong Kong. I mean, as Rosemary said, you know, we cannot live with our helpers in Hong Kong, which made the whole sort of universe in Hong Kong works well. What Rob actually has set up this Ultra Vest, which is a foundation that he set up for many years. He has like $1 billion in there that he match any advisors who donate their commission to a charity. He will match 100% up to 250,000 per deal. Okay, and equally for any clients who actually donate their proceeds from sale of any businesses, again, each donation up to 250,000, he will match 100%. So that is, you know, killing two birds with one stone.
Excellent. It's excellent. All right, we've got 8 minutes and counting. Any questions from the audience? Hi.
Yes, thank you, Rosemary.
Okay, so you talked about roll-ups, right? So obviously that takes financing. So how do you, like, what kind of financing solutions are you usually looking at for clients that need to do a roll-up in order to ready themselves for a sale?
Actually, STS, we don't do financing, but we actually work with banks like RBC, BMO, okay, to work out a package for clients who do roll-ups. So, we arrange, but, we do not provide financing. But we have many friendly banks all around globally, actually, who actually help us with that.
Or private debt also in your tool kit?
I cannot answer that because, because many of these companies that we work with, they are actually medium-sized businesses, and we do deals from 50 millions onwards to 300 to half a billion, to half a billion, yes. And so private debt actually, may be a little bit, the size-wise may not be the right solution. I think, probably bank financing actually sometimes is cheaper for clients to do that type of financing. Correct, Terence?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Actually, I might ask Terence a
Sure.
question
Yeah,
while
go
you're
for it.
here.
Yeah.
So RBC, right?
Yes.
You guys have been in Asia for a long, long time.
50 years or so.
50 years, okay, maybe not as long as BMO. But why is there, you are not ultra big, you are not very visible in the sense that, you are just a very quiet, solid Canadian bank.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans of growing it big now that you've taken, HSBC's portfolio?
Yeah, great question. So my boss will continually tell me that it is a proposed acquisition because he's an investment banker and he'll never say it's done until the regulators and everybody else approves. So, but the hope is that it does get closed. Look, the short answer would be we've had a bunch of false starts. I think on the institutional side, our global market sales and trading business is actually quite strong, and we've got a wide array of capabilities that span across pretty much every single asset class. Our investment banking, primarily because we don't do corporate lending or local ECM, DCM, then we have a solid inbound, outbound M&A team, so similar to what STS does, but kind of at the more institutional corporate level. On the private wealth side is where we've had those false starts where quite frankly, we either couldn't get out of our own way and we would parachute in very, very seasoned Canadian leaders who didn't quite understand the market and didn't get much traction, or we would go and recruit a very strong local leader who knew the market but didn't have any understanding of the cultural fabric of the bank and the connectivity to key partners in Toronto. And so we kept doing this, and then we went with this, and went with this. So wasn't great for management continuity or for client experience. My predecessor came in and did a hard reset and really kind of reconnected the platform and the bridges back to all of our key supporting functions and decision makers. And then I came in just on time for COVID, apparently, to build this thing. But to do all the fun stuff, right? To amplify the brand, to participate in panels like this, to go out and actually recruit talent. So I think we're in a really, really good spot now, and the ambition is pretty big. We are the only Canadian option now in this part of the world when it comes to wealth management and private banking, and I think that's it's a very fortunate position to be in. I think if this room is any testament, as well as other conferences that we've been in recently, there's a lot of Canadian or Canada connected businesses, entrepreneurs, leaders that will need these kinds of services and how we connect back to Whistler and everywhere else. So the ambition is definitely there and momentum is there now as well. And so all I will say is in the next 3 to 5 years, watch out.
Yeah, I've got an account with RBC. They better do well.
It's a different question.
Yeah, so sometimes some entrepreneurs' business, they might have a good business model, a good idea, but they often don't institutionalize leadership and the processes. Do you work with them to get them ready to be sold? And it's probably a lengthy process. Do you give advice, coach, get them ready, rather than just go find a buyer?
Oh yeah, I mean, there are some businesses where we actually work with them for like 2-3 years before we actually go out and get a strategic buyer. Because as you said, management is very important. To have a right CFO in that company is key, because a strategic buyer is going to come in and see that you have orderly books and profitability and a good management team. Because one of the key that there are actually and in the package I have put together, there are 10 criteria that we look at. We don't take on any deals, but there are 10 criteria, and a client or a seller has to meet 7 of them at least to qualify for STS to take them on. Now, sometimes they may not get to the 7 just yet, but they are very keen to work with us. And so we take time to work with them. And sometimes we even get smaller investors to come in and build it up with them. So it's a very dynamic process. Okay, but yes, we do work with management. We do work with the family, actually, to make it attractive. But tomorrow, in fact, I'm doing a workshop, 8 o'clock in the morning. I think it's 8 to 9, right? On a virtual networking workshop. But if anybody who has questions, we can actually talk in more details about how, each particular situation and how we will work with them or work with clients.
Okay, I see 30 seconds, so probably wrap this up. Vivien, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Really
and thank you very much for all the questions. And it's a great honor to be actually an honorary Canadian chamber member. So thank you.
And thank you to the audience. Good engagement.